Can you sense it? Can you feel it? Is our guest a believer? TCU bounce back season starts now.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox, been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. Thank you for making Locked On Horned Frogs your first listen. In the box next to me, if you've listened to the show over the last few years, you know this man. He's a freelance writer, covers TCU athletics. Matt Jennings is with us. And I did it. I sent out the bat signal. I said, Matt, we're getting close to the season. We need to have you on. So my first question, you are a noted Sonny Dykes hater. That's not totally true. I think we were both equally frustrated with him middle of the season last year. There were a lot of things that were not working. Going into this year, the way they closed the season, some of the things they did in the offseason. Would you say you're a believer? Are you on the fence? Where are you at with what he's been doing over the past few months at TCU?
I would say I kind of balked at first, but I did write something last year that was like, hey, like maybe it's trying to pull the plug on Sonny. So I think that maybe a hater, at least at maybe what in like
skeptic. Sonny Dykes skeptic.
October last year, maybe that's fair. I would say skeptic to on the fence. I'm willing to be on the fence. I think there's a couple ways to kind of look at the way they ended last season and all the stuff that they've done in this offseason. I like their offseason overall. I think that the portal additions are great. We know the quality of the recruiting class. I think on the whole, you feel good about the way the offseason has gone. And they've kept, with the exception of Brockermeyer to Miami, they haven't lost a bunch of guys to the portal, and some guys even that you thought were maybe going to go to the NFL or be done with their eligibility stuck around. Bud Clark, Nnamdi Obiazor, so feel pretty good. I think the optimist would look at the end of last season and say, hey, win last 6 year, last 7, defense got better down the stretch. You're bringing Josh Hoover really coming into his own. Like, there's stuff to build on there. And you finish with a 9-win season. That's the stepping stone to being a breakout in 25. I think the pessimist looks at it and says, how real were those results? 1 possession wins over Utah and Cincinnati and Texas Tech that like could have gone either way toward the end. You beat up on bad Arizona, bad Louisiana, bad Oklahoma State, and the best team that you played in that back half of the schedule was Baylor, and you lost. So it's like I think it's very much in the eye of the beholder. I think, and I wrote this back in whatever it was, December. I think the question of whether or not the Sonny Dykes era is going to work out is what is going to be the story that's written about his ability to develop his own players. I think that's what it comes down to. I like the acquisitions in the portal, and we saw in 2022 his ability to get the most out of a well-constructed roster. And we've seen at spots since then at receiver and, in the back end of the defense or a quarterback. Admittedly, Josh Hoover's his own guy, so that actually doesn't play into it. But, with the talent that he's either acquired through the portal or that he inherited from Gary, maximizing that talent at a bunch of different positions. My concern with him going back to the time at SMU was, can he build his own roster with his own recruiting philosophy, his own transfer portal philosophy, and put out a team, a starting 22 and a full depth chart that can go where they want to go over the course of a full season. I think this is going to be the first year that we probably get the beginning of that answer, because they didn't bring in a massive influx of transfers. They did more of what they did in 22. They plugged key spots, but a lot of that defensive front, a lot of a lot of players in the back end, and at the skill possessions, you're going to be relying on more of your own guys like Jordan Bailey, Major Everhart, now Ed Small at receiver. It's going to be more of what is the story of how well are those players progressing, and how well do they all work together as a unit, and how do they work together under the staff that he's constructed, which I think there are some parts, some evidence of like, this could really work out, and some evidence of like, what on earth are we doing? And so I think this will be, now that he's got a little bit more of the roster that he constructed and planned for, okay, now what are you doing with it? How are you helping those players maximize their potential? That's the question that I have.
We've talked about this example before, but back in 2020, the COVID shortened year, and Gary Patterson was the coach. They were 1-3. Vibes were low. They ended up going on a nice run to end the year. But the problem with that team was they couldn't pass the ball. They didn't actually get better at throwing the football. They just played smash mouth, ran the ball on bad teams like Kansas and Texas Tech, who was bad at the time, and a couple other squads. And so in 2021, all those issues showed up again. Combine that with a defense that kind of fell off a cliff, and it was bad news all around. So going into this year, I think the two things that you wonder about, did you improve your run game? Can you run the ball? Can you stop the run?
Yep.
Well, I would say they're deeper on the defensive line than they were. Offensively, they didn't change a lot, Matt. I mean, their transfer that honestly, I mean, according to like Jeremy Clark and Steven Johnson, the guys that practice, Kavorian Barnes is probably your week 1 starter, the UTSA transfer. It sounds like he's going to get the nod. And he had a nice career there for a bit, but then his last season was not so great. They shuffled around the offensive line a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of last year, they didn't. They got the Savion Williams package going, and that worked, but it was just a stopgap. So I think they're going to be better running the football. But I don't have a lot of tangible evidence to support that. They've beefed up the O-line. They brought in Randy Clements. Where are you sort of on that key factor? Can they play better, complementary ball and specifically run the ball better in 2025?
That is the thing that I'm the most skeptical of, because you're right. It's kind of the reverse of, it's the same, but it's the reverse of the 2021 thing. It's like, they couldn't throw the ball. The 2020 thing. It's like, they couldn't run the ball, but they didn't get in a position where they had to. And so they were able to rack up some wins down the stretch against, in 24, they couldn't run the ball. And so they kind of jerry-rigged a way to do it. But now that solution isn't even around anymore in Savion Williams. So it's you're back to to finding the answer to that question. So yeah, I think it comes down to, because it's not just can you run the ball, can you get 5 yards a pop? It's, can you run the ball situationally? Can you run it in short yardage? Can you run it in the red zone? I think there are ways that can work for them. I think quietly, one thing that really kind of hurts them is the fact that Josh Hoover's just not a threat in the run game. Not that he's not mobile, but it's just not a part of his game that he really works on. Yeah. And then he's not an option at all in sort of the read option, quarterback keeper game. When they tried that last year, when they tried to run zone read, they had trouble at the mesh point all the time. And if that's not a legitimate threat the defense has to respect, then the defense has to respect, then the numbers change for you in the running game too, because they don't have to have an extra hat to account for the quarterback. And so that there are fewer gaps then for the running back to exploit. And so it's okay if you don't have a mobile quarterback. You can make a lot of hay without it. But what's the counterpunch that you have instead? And that's the question I think that needs to be answered. Is it that their running back room is just better this year, which I like Barnes from and the things that he showed at UTSA. I like John Denman. I thought we saw some cool things from Jeremy Payne last year. Like, you can talk me into some stuff there. Is it that they're going to have more of a deep passing game this year? Because Josh Hoover seemed to grow a little bit over the course of the last season with that. And if that's the case, and defenses can't put all 11 guys within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage, like, does that change the spacing and the angles that the running game has? Is it that Hoover develops a little bit more of a scrambling improvisational aspect to his game. And so then, which we saw a little bit of in the bowl game against Louisiana. And so then do you like, is the possibility of him scrambling enough to kind of hold a linebacker's eyes for just long enough to kind of create some additional moments of conflict? I don't know. I think if they can find one or two of those answers, then that's great. But the fact that they don't have like a bona fide number one stud at running back, I think we're still have some questions about the state of the offensive line as a run blocking unit overall. If they had answered one of those two questions more definitively in the offseason, then I think I'd feel better. But the fact that the offensive line is largely the same as a year ago, and that the running back room doesn't have like a clear number one guy, those are the things that would give me pause. The way you spin that is you say, oh, well, but you've got a lot of continuity in the offensive line. You think they're all going to take a step forward together. Okay. A great time to show that would be week 1 against Bill Belichick.
Right. When we come back, will Sonny Dykes have an elite defense for the first time in his career? It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you own a business, take a second to listen to me for a minute. OpenPhone. You need to get OpenPhone. It's the best way to get all your calls in one place. You're probably right now juggling a cell phone, a business phone, a personal line. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more delegating. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. If somebody calls you and you don't answer, they're probably going to move on to the next person. You can't miss these opportunities. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, and that means no missed customers. So I think we were all really excited about the Andy Avalos experience last year. And to his credit, it improved, but it didn't really reach its full form. I might be most excited about this defense, Matt. And that's strange to say about a Sonny Dykes-led team. But I think you got some pass rushers, Devin Deal, Zach Chapman. Is this the emergence of Jonathan Bax finally, in his career making some plays? In the secondary, it feels like they're pretty deep. You got Avery Helm coming back, a couple of corners on the other side that made some improvements at the end of last year. I think they made some sneaky good additions with Kylan Jackson and Yates in the back end of that safety spot. Bud Clark back for like year 25 in his career. Thank goodness. I love Bud. To me, this feels like if you can't get to a place where your offense is significantly better running the ball, or at least that's going to take some time, then you might need to win some games by holding teams under 24, 25 points. That's not typically been the formula for a Sonny Dykes-led group, but that might be the way that you sneak by with some early wins while you figure it out on the other side of the ball.
I think that one thing that's quietly exciting about this group, and you alluded to it, is the number of guys that I think they expected to be serious contributors a year ago who are back. Mm-hmm. Whether that's, to your point, Avery Helm, Vernon Glover, who are probably going to be their 2 starting corners a year ago, and that got taken away from them. The depth at corner was like really a rough situation for them a year ago, and now it seems like more, certainly at least a neutral position, if not a position of strength. And then, up front, you missed the whole year with Michael Ibekanekude and Paul Oyewale, 2 guys who are very first off the bus guys. You love the physical traits that they bring, and it's like, man, if they can stay healthy and stay on the field and give you the ability to set the edge a little bit better. Now, again, that's projecting because we just haven't gotten to see them all on the field very much.
Right. Yeah.
But so that's a question. But it's like, if you just have some depth at these different positions that were real places of weakness for you a year ago, and you add that on top of, I thought Marcus Deal was a revelation for you for most of the year, and I don't think it's a coincidence by any means that the game that you had the worst time in the back half of the schedule defending the run against Baylor was the game where he got hurt and he wasn't available for a bunch of that game. If he's out there and he's able to play the number of snaps that they need him to play, then I think that opens up a whole world of possibilities for you. And so I like a lot of those pieces. I think my one existential question about Andy Avalos as a coordinator is his best results came at Oregon, where he had probably a top 15 overall, unit in terms of talent nationally. There were not a lot of teams that had more blue chippers across the entire roster than Oregon when he was there under Mario Cristobal. And so, that I think is the question, is like, can he accomplish similar things on a roster that, to his credit, is building up a lot of talent and doing so quickly, but is not to that level yet. And so what is the and I think they felt that strain at times last season with the overall talent level of the roster compounded with the injuries. So if they can stay healthy and some of the young players that he's recruited over the last year and a half, 2 years can be contributors, then I think you feel really good about it. They're going to get tested, though. They're going to get tested in a big way because they play some, whether it's, Arizona State, returning Big 12 champion. I know they don't have Cam Scatabo back, but Sam Lovett's a really good quarterback.
Right.
We all know what Kansas State loves to do to TCU when they get on the field together from a physicality perspective. You're going to play Baylor again. I think there are some dangerous offenses on this schedule. And to your point, I think you need to be able to just keep them in check to a degree, so that you're if there are some kinks to work out with the running game, or if there are any, if Josh Hoover has a game where like he's not firing the way that he normally does, if he has turnovers or things like that, it's not going to kill you because your defense, you can rely upon your defense, which you weren't able to do for certainly the first half of last year. But I think the back half, gave you some confidence that maybe there's a different version of this unit that they are working to unlock.
I've been on the record as like the leader of the Jordan Bailey fan club. Unfortunately, he's been out for a lot of fall camp, but that is still a guy that I'm intrigued by. Jacoby Hayes, true freshman wide receiver, that's apparently just tearing up fall camp and is making his name known. Chad Woodfork, young edge rusher that, you talk about first off the bus guy, like he looks like he's the prototypical dude there. I hope I didn't steal your guys, but give me one or two players that you're just excited about, whether it's a returner or a young player that you want to see more of this season.
Among the new players, I mentioned him just for a second a little while ago, but like everything that you hear about Ed Small is all wildly encouraging. And that's a position that is like between, to your point, the availability questions for Bailey or Ezukanma or Everhart over the course of their careers, and the fact that JP Richardson is now looking like he's probably going to make the roster for the Bears. So good for him. Right. That's a position like that quick, shifty, dangerous in space slot receiver is a position that provides a lot of is super important in this offense, and where you can provide a lot of value, and all the not just his measurables and like what he can do on the field, but just like everyone raves about his maturity and his understanding of the game. I think he's one that I'll be really excited to watch. I'll just do two receivers just because I want to and I can, but returners, Eric McAllister, I thought when he was on the field a year ago, he's just different, man, in terms of what he can do for you. Can he be a reliable number one the way that Josh Hoover clearly had that rapport with Jack Besh? That's the question that needs to be answered. But when he's out there, he adds there's an athleticism and an explosive element to what he brings to the game that unlocks a whole lot of things that I don't know that anyone else on the roster really does for you. And he showed it, against UCF. He showed it against, he showed it in the bowl game. Like when he's on the field and he gets the opportunity to do it, it's fireworks. He's got to be on the field. But I'm excited to see what he can do if he gets those opportunities again.
Coming up next, I'll tell Matt why TCU is going to Arlington to play in the Big 12 title game, and he has to agree with me because it's my show. Before we do that, though, I need to tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is super simple to use. My brother-in-law loves PrizePicks. He's always texting me, not to see how I'm doing or check on my family, just to know, hey, more or less on Josh Allen's stat totals. But in all seriousness, it is really simple. Just between 2 to 6 players, you go basically over under. They say more or less on those stat totals. You can win up to 200 times your money, and you just play one $5 lineup if you download the app and use the code Locked On College, and you'll get a $50 lineup. That's right, one $5 lineup gets you a $50 lineup if you download the app today and use the code Locked On College. That's instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks. Jump in the game today. It's very easy to use. Give it a try. PrizePicks. Download that app. Again, that promo code is Locked On College. So there's reasons to be skeptical. I would agree with you, but I do feel like there's a lot to like about where they're at. They've recruited, this 2026 class, we'll see where it lands. It doesn't feel like it's going to be the same level, but they've recruited really well over the past few years. I thought they've made some nice additions in the portal. I think they're going to run the ball better. I think they're going to be better on defense. And, for all the talk about, it is a tough schedule. I'll agree with that. I think the Belichick game is going to be challenging. SMU is obviously going to be a big challenge. But in the Big 12, Kansas State, fraudulent. They weren't great last year. They're frauds. Colorado, fraudulent. No Shedeur Sanders, no Travis Hunter, frauds. BYU, true freshman quarterback, fraudulent. I'm calling it right now. In Provo. Iowa State, I don't know. Arizona State, not fraudulent. That's a good team. Baylor, fraudulent. Should have beaten them last year on their home field. Didn't do it. But if TCU was healthy, they would have. Sawyer Robertson getting a ridiculous amount of hype. He's not the dude. Bryson Washington is the dude. That's a problem. They got to stop him. When you break it down, though, like that, when you just say all the teams are fraudulent, the schedule doesn't look. I encourage everyone. Right. Yeah, when you just dismiss everybody, it doesn't seem as difficult as, when you look on paper. Oh, shoot, I got a fraud alert on my phone. Oh, that's Joe McGuire calling me. They don't play Texas Tech this year, but that's just the only
time you play them is in Arlington.
That's just a side note. Yeah, they won't get there. Yeah, Texas Tech won't. Anyway, I really do feel like, though, expectations should be high. I think this team can and should play for a Big 12 championship. Matt, I'm not totally sure where you stand. I hope you're at least over the 6.5 win total from our friends at FanDuel. But can this team navigate their way to at least compete for a Big 12 championship this season?
The short answer is yes. I think they have to be talked about in the group of contenders. I think this year in the Big 12 is really, really interesting because I don't think there is, and I think this is kind of the state of the new Big 12, right?
Right.
It used to be like Oklahoma is playing somebody, right? Like that was just kind of year in and year out. That was the state of existence. And now it really does feel like it is such a deep conference and a conference of a lot of parity. And not like because you've got a bunch of so-so teams, but you've got, in a given year, you probably have 3 really good teams and then like another 5 teams right beneath that are only a degree removed and that can, on any given day, punch above their weight. Mm-hmm. And then even like the bottom of the league is like not is going to be a challenge, right? And so it's just a deep league that leads to chaos and leads to parity. And so the result is I think you can make a reasonable case for anywhere like probably 6 teams. And I think TCU is one of them of like, yeah, I think it's reasonable to expect this team could be in Arlington, maybe more honestly. And so is TCU in that group of teams that I think should get that treatment? Absolutely. And I do think it's kind of funny. I think ultimately probably it comes down to the fact that they lost the Baylor game because if they had won that game and they had finished last season on a 7-game win streak and then they finished with 10 wins, mm-hmm. Then I think probably their preseason rankings really high, but like preseason rankings or whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like, man, what other team could be bringing back like one of the most productive passers in college football from the year before, be bringing back a ton of returning production, have recruited as well as they have over the last couple of years, won 6 of 7 to finish the previous season, and like kind of be this under the radar. Like, I think it speaks to just kind of where TCU has always sat in the prognostication media landscape. They're just not usually, unless they just finished the previous season in the top 5 or the top 10, they're usually not getting that sort of preseason hype, which is fine. But I think because of those factors, Josh Hoover coming back, there's the amount of returning production and starts, the way they finished last season, I think there's a plausible argument for like, hey, if they take just one additional step forward this year as a group, then they should absolutely be in that discussion. If they should have a mathematical chance in the last 3 weeks of the season to get to Arlington. I think that's a very reasonable expectation for them. I think the thing that I think the early part of the season will be pretty revealing about whether or not they're legit, whether or not they can be that team come November. They open the season at North Carolina. Let me plant my flag in terms of, you talk about frauds. And I'm gonna eat this, I'm sure. I do not think the Belichick experiment at North Carolina is gonna work. I don't think his way of coaching, his style, and his way of doing business and his way of managing a roster is gonna work. Not in 2025 college football, right? All that being said, if you come out and you lay an egg against the second biggest stunt hire of the millennium just 2 years after doing it against Deion Sanders in Colorado, like, that's a bad way to start the season. But if you come out, you take care of business against a team that roster wise, I don't think is going to be where they want to be yet. And is coached by a guy who I don't think is going to be able to really understand or make it work within the confines of the college game. I think you should be able, if you just go out there and you handle your business on the road in week 1, you have a chance to kind of make a statement. Then obviously you get SMU a couple weeks later at home. Last currently scheduled battle for the Iron Skillet. SMU's a good team. SMU went to the playoff a year ago. SMU nearly won the ACC a year ago. SMU embarrassed you a year ago. That's a game that could, that's going to be a measuring stick game for you. Do you handle yourself and handle your business better in that game than you did a year ago? Then you go at Arizona State, home against Colorado. To your point, maybe I also feel that Colorado takes a step back this year, but
they're talent. They got talented people.
They got talent. At Arizona State, home against Colorado, at Kansas State, and then a rivalry game against Baylor. That is a gauntlet over the course of 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the end of that Baylor game, and you've won. What are you sitting? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 games. You get to the end of that Baylor game, and you're honestly, if you're 5-2, I think you feel really, really good, right? And if you're anything better than that, I think you got a chance to do something really special, right? But that early stretch is killer. But I don't think any of those games are also chalk it up as an L right now. Right? I think they can match up with any of those teams. I think it's the sense of distrust from the things that we've seen from this program over the last couple of years that make you not be willing to kind of go out there and make a firmer I think they're going to do that. I need to see it. And that's why I think that that opener against North Carolina is going to be that's a kind of game that a team that is ready and that is mature and that is well coached goes out there and wins that game by 10, and it's never scary. I think that sets a really good tone for you as the season gets started.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And the North Carolina game is going to be tough because Belichick I still think he's an intimidating presence, even
absolutely
with the issues. But I do have an idea for Sonny.
Please
to make him more relatable.
Sure.
In the locker room, just be like, hey guys, he's a normal person. His girlfriend's the same age as yours. So, all right.
Oh,
Well, that was fun.
gosh. Dude, like that's the man. He, maybe he does know how to connect with young people. Maybe we've all got it wrong.
I mean, yeah, he's still winning recruiting battles. Okay. He's Matt Jennings. He'll be on with us frequently during the year, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun things to talk about. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all those platforms.